Sensationally silver, because you are.
Welcome, everyone, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who are going to bring you information, inspiration, and validation. Join us. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind. My guest today, who has been my guest before, and hopefully she'll continue to be my guest, is one of my very favorite people in the whole world, Julia Loggins. And our topic today is such a good one for all of us. It's when you're told it's because you're old. Julia, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me back.
So let's talk about that whole thing, that when you get told by a doctor, get over it. You just have to live with it because you're old. You've got
Yes.
other solutions to those kinds of problems, right?
Right. And people get told that from 40 on, let alone 50, 60, and at 70. Oh my gosh, everything is because, according to what we hear from our medical practitioners, so much of the time, you're just old. And it is the most frustrating, demoralizing, and incorrect statement. And the irony is, there are actually things about aging that affect our health that we can do something about. And if we do those things, we have an amazing next chapter. But those are the types of things we're not going to hear from medical practitioners. And then there's other things that we can enhance because of our age. And I want to talk about those because those are the gifts of aging. And as they, that saying that aging is, that youth is wasted on the young. Well, that is true in my book if your body's falling apart and you feel terrible, because then you just only want to be back in your 20s and 30s. But when you're feeling wonderful, and your energy is good and your digestion is working and simple things are happening, like you go to the bathroom every day, you digest food without belching and burping and passing terrible gas, which is not a fun thing to do around anybody, then actually we can enjoy the fruits of the next chapter of our life, and even better, have the energy to keep reinventing ourselves.
Yeah, because I know in my case, I like myself better now, and I'm going to be 80 in July. I like myself better now, so much better than when I was 14 or 24 or 34. This is a wonderful time of life as long as I'm comfortable. So let's get kind of specific. What are some examples?
Okay, so we're going to get really specific. So one of the things that happens after 40 and really after 60 is that the amount of hydrochloric acid in our stomach, which is responsible for digesting protein, is greatly diminished down to almost zero. And according to medical research, 80% of people in America over 40, and that's 40, right? We're talking young, have very low stomach acid. What low stomach acid causes, besides bloating, constipation, diarrhea, is it can lead to diverticulitis, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, all these inflammatory conditions of the gut that absolutely hijack a person's life and enjoyment of life. It also, having low stomach acid means you're at increased risk of ulcers and stomach bacteria like H. pylori, which can lead to stomach cancer. Having low stomach acid is one of the absolute um, most most, I would say dangerous is a crazy word. So let's just say incredibly inconvenient, uncomfortable, and destructive things to the body. And the best thing, it can be so easily fixed, but it is almost never diagnosed by a medical doctor. And so if you have bloating, constipation, belching, any gut issue at all, literally anything, including I don't seem to be able to eat the foods I used to eat. Why? You have less stomach acid. And stress increases the destruction of stomach acid. So, and I think as we age and our energy and our brains kind of become, I think, bigger and more capable of more people depend on us. So we're holding a different kind of stress, maybe not the type of stress we had in our 30s or 40s in the workaday, but now we have a whole different kind of stress because we're so aware of the ebbs and flows of the world and the people around us, and people really depend on us. So it's a different kind of stress. All of that diminishes stomach acid. Number one thing for people to fix.
So what's the solution? How do you fix it?
Take a digestive enzyme with hydrochloric acid after a protein meal. And I created one only because I work with people with sensitive tummies. And what I discovered in my own health journey, and low stomach acid was a part of mine from day one, that what was available on the market either had too much stomach acid and caused heartburn or had too little, like a papaya enzyme, which is only good for digesting papaya and absolutely nothing else. And that there wasn't anything available that really worked, which was mind-boggling to me. But because of that, I created a supplement. And I am not a believer in over supplementation. And especially when we're over 40, 50, 60, 70, we cannot digest 22 pills, and I don't believe in it. So I'm a believer in very few supplements, but one of the absolute most important things that people will experience a change in their entire being is to add a digestive enzyme with hydrochloric acid after a protein meal, unless there's one caveat to that. If you have an ulcer or gastritis, then you need to heal that first. You just have to heal the stomach lining. It's totally doable to do that, by the way. But then you want to wait until the stomach lining is healed to add that enzyme. But that enzyme can be a complete game changer. I've had people say, I don't think I ever digested anything before I added this supplement to my diet.
And how long does it take before a person
Feel something. I had a testimonial yesterday from somebody who said 24 hours after I started taking it, I feel totally different. For other people, it might take a little longer because we're all different in our levels of connection to our bodies. Some people are very connected to their bodies, and it's not a good or bad thing. Generally, people are not that connected to their body because their body always worked. And so they have the luxury of not having to be that connected to their body. For those of us like me who have a long health history, that very much connected me to what was happening in my body. I'm more sensitive, as are most of my clients. So it's not a bad thing if for anybody out there, if you feel like you're not quite sure what's going on in your body, that's okay. Your body's taking really good care of you.
I think it's also sometimes easy for people to feel like their body is betraying them. And what you're saying, Julia, is no, this is
Yeah.
the natural thing that diminishes as we get older. As you said, starting at 40 at least.
Yeah.
It's not a betrayal. We last a lot longer than we used to last. So we just need to help things along, right?
We do. And also our environment is entirely different than our great grandparents lived in. In only the last 100 years, we are living in a planet that is as different for our bodies as if we all went on a spaceship to a different planet than the one our bodies were designed to live on. And I say that to my clients of all ages, but it's especially important for my older clients, especially those who've had a good run with their bodies, to understand why things are changing, because our environment and the level of toxicity that all of our bodies are dealing with is not something our bodies were designed to deal with. And it will take, eons to mutate to deal with. Hopefully the next generations will deal with the mess that is out there, but it's nothing that we or even our children or grandchildren will see a change in.
Okay. So another specific, is there another condition?
Sure. Another specific is that if you out there are dealing with constipation and you never did before, or maybe you actually, as many of my clients will share, have had constipation as long as they can remember. But the truth is, the colon is a muscle and it is going to change shape as you age, and it is going to have less tone and then less oomph, which is called peristalsis. So it's just going to have less of an ability to do what it's supposed to do, which is to move waste out of your body fully. And when it doesn't move waste fully and you don't go every day, that is the root cause of issues like diverticulitis, colitis, and one of the root causes of IBS, which is these are epidemically raising, these are just astronomically going up and up in the amount of people who struggle with them. And that they are all fixable, which is everything I'm going to share is fixable. And not every single thing that's going to happen to us under the sun, we at this moment have answers for, but there's so many things we do, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So if you're experiencing that, then this is the fix. Start eating more cooked food, less raw food. Raw food is constipating. And please don't take a laxative. Laxatives are addictive. They'll make your colon stop working. And the reason that laxatives work is that they are think of sandpaper on a burn. So if you imagine that the inside of your arm has been burned and then you put a sandpaper on it. So that's what happens to the inside of an inflamed colon when laxatives hit it. It just expels liquid out of levels of irritation. Number one, irritation gets worse and the colon doesn't really release fully. So please don't use laxatives. And if you do, don't worry if you're dependent on them. I work with so many laxative dependent people. No shame, because if that's the only thing that's getting your bowels moving, I get it. So, and don't use a high fiber product because fiber will only make the constipation worse. There's so many myths that I'm not going to even say the medical world has kind of passed on to us, because those are actually all myths, like high fiber is good for us. Those are myths passed on by brilliant marketers who learned how to sell things. The whole myth of high fiber was created by cereal companies to sell cereal. How do we get people to eat bran? We tell them nothing in their body will move without it. Well, that's because we've now created fast foods and processed foods and nothing's moving. So let's create the fix. We can just avoid all of this. So if you're struggling with constipation, eat more cooked food, less salad. I have a product that's safe to use. I created it because the only thing that existed on the market when I started my practice was laxatives, colon cleanses that weren't very successful. And I discovered so many, the statistics on constipation, which means you're not going every single day. I have clients who say, but my doctor told me it's normal what I'm doing. I go every 4 days. I go every 3 days. I've been doing that my whole life. Okay, that's not normal. It's not okay, and it's going to lead to a problem. But no matter how old you are and how long you might have been taking laxatives, these things are fixable. But it is something that we deal with as we age because the colon's a muscle.
Okay. So I'm thinking about this cooked foods, fewer salads, that seems so contrary to sort of the general
Yes, the whole
Wisdom.
narrative.
Yeah, yeah.
It's absolutely the opposite of the high fiber myth, which is directly responsible to the fact that I'll probably never be out of a job. Um, because it high fiber for people that have inflammatory gut issues, which according to the American GI Association is 85% of the American public. And if you can only imagine for people over 60, it's probably closer to the 90s. So that means that, um, and while we're also talking about, if there's no acid in the stomach, then what happens is food gets into the colon almost undigested. It's like picture as if you didn't even chew it. That's how your body is going to see it. It's going to treat it as a foreign object. That's where food allergies come from. Autoimmune issues are starting to come right in here. And then the body doesn't know what to do with it. It stores it. That many people have heard the story that Elvis Presley died with 60 pounds of waste in his colon. John Wayne died with, those are true stories. On their death certificates, the cause of death was constipation. Shockingly. And I feel the reason I tell that story, poor Elvis, I wish I could have worked with him. And of course, there was also painkillers involved, right? Um, but the reason I feel those stories are so touching to me is I see that in my office every day. It's not so uncommon. And then the other thing is when we get older, we sometimes need a painkiller. So that's only going to add to this history, to the story around constipation. And then we're generally given a laxative. So I just want to give everybody a few more tools in their toolkit. If you need a painkiller to take sometimes, of course, do what you need to do, and then have some tools around the constipation it's going to cause, because it will.
I'm also assuming that if that hydrochloric acid is at such a low level that it's not really doing its job, the job that the body needs it to do, then also we're not getting much nutrition from what we are eating.
Our nutritional deficiencies in people over 60, it's crazy. And the thing is, when we go to get our blood tests, these tests are graded on an average. So, I know that when I go to my doctor and I'd had, my thyroid was a little bit low. She said, yeah, but you're looking at an average for how I want you to be, for the level of health we want you to have. We really want to boost it. And actually, I just got to boost it with taking natural iodine. I wasn't in the category to need a thyroid, like an actual thyroid supplement. But, we're dealing with an average American public that is unfortunately so sick. And our audience, everybody out there, we want to raise to such an enhanced level of health and vitality because this is, as you said, this is the best time of our life. But when we're not feeling good and we're trying to exist over the top of it, it is really not fun.
And what you were saying about stress, Julia, that um, it makes everything worse,
Yep.
reduces the efficiency of whatever should be happening. I think as we get older, we can get a little bit obsessed about the health of our body. Every morning, we wake up and we check in what hurts,
Oh, yes.
what's stiff, whatever. Can I get out of bed? Can I walk?
Yeah,
All kinds of things. And
completely.
have our own package of stress that comes with aging. And so much of what you're saying, I mean, it's just such a relief to hear that the solutions are really uncomplicated.
They're so uncomplicated, right? They're so uncomplicated, and they make such a big difference because, as we all know, pain, the discomfort when our gut's unhappy, we're unhappy. Not just because our stomach hurts, but because our gut is where all our serotonin, the neurotransmitter that makes us feel happy, optimistic, joyful, it's all made in the gut. So if our gut's working, we have the resilience to go, oh, what do I need to do about X, Y, and Z? When our gut isn't happy, we can't even see the forest through the trees. And so I know this because when, the lovely customer service people that work on my website are saying your clients cannot even find their way through. They have the most crazy questions. I said, but my clients whose guts don't work have brain fog. I know this. They're struggling. So, I mean, I know this. So everybody out there, I get it. Like I answer every one of the questions that come through because I understand whether it's something about the body or just how to get from A to B. Because when our gut doesn't work, our brain doesn't work. And that's why it's so important at our age that our gut works so that we have the optimism, the faith, and also that we reduce our level of pain and discomfort in the body. Because it's the more pain we have just as a baseline, then the next little thing, and there's going to be one, is going to feel like instead of a level 3 or 4 or 5, it's going to feel like an 8 or a 9. And then we're like, the alarm starts ringing. And then we go, that story in our head, oh my gosh, I have a terrible disease. I mean, we just go all the way to there. That we can really dial that down when our gut's working. And we really want the resources to do that. And then we want to be able to do that for all the people around us that we love that are either our age or younger, that we can throw them a life net for. But if we don't have our own oxygen mask on, we're shot.
Yeah. We did a recent show with Pat Mydell, and she was talking about dementia and discussing how early it's occurring in people's lives now, people in their 20s and 30s.
Yep.
And again, a lot of the source of that seems to be this horrible American diet, this toxic
Yes.
American diet,
Yes.
especially that young people eat,
Yes.
day glow foods. I mean,
Yes.
scary.
Also, what's so sad is also older people. I would have to say the two ends of the spectrum. And unfortunately, the middle, because the economics of America are such that everybody is working 2 and 3 jobs. Mothers are working. My mom was home. We were just middle class. There are no middle class people who have somebody at home taking care of kids now. Everybody's working. So now everybody is stressed, and very few people have the luxury to cook at home. I do so much work with my clients and on my social media on really fast foods, that how fast you can prepare foods, using slow cookers, what you can actually buy at the grocery store. And older people, I think, are on as bad a diet as teenagers because especially if they live alone or if they don't cook, they're eating processed food. And now their bodies aren't even working as well as the teenagers, although my teenagers aren't in such good shape either. And they're dealing with, as we all know, being overweight, um, and obesity. So I really feel that, and maybe we'll do a podcast on actual simple food prep techniques so that, what can you do in 5 to 7 minutes to make a healthy meal? If it takes longer than that, who's going to do it?
I want to do that podcast because I didn't know that. I'm thinking of my parents, my mother and my stepfather, and they pretty much existed. My mother hated to cook. She really didn't like taking care of people. It wasn't something that I loved doing. So they were existing on TV dinners.
Yeah,
And I don't think a vitamin had passed either one of their lips in at least a decade, maybe several. It
yeah.
was it was a guaranteed formula for falling apart.
Of course, it is. And it's a guaranteed formula for falling apart. And in 5 to 7 minutes, it's in an inexpensive way. It is possible to make nutritious, delicious, digestible foods. All of those things are critical to age beautifully and to age with resilience and joy.
And on the other hand, I'm thinking about when things are misdiagnosed, they're not attributed to this failure of metabolism. failure of digestion, then what's prescribed are prescription drugs. And
right?
the definition of a prescription drug is that it's toxic.
Yeah,
If it weren't
exactly.
toxic, it wouldn't have to be controlled. So you're increasing the toxicity in your body, making it even harder for the body to do what it's trying to do on your behalf. It's a
Yes.
pretty vicious circle.
And it's not even getting to the root cause of why you got sick in the first place. So it's not the only way, the only time I believe that, those kinds of, modern medicine is absolutely best in the emergency room. One of my mentors, who is a medical doctor, calls it battlefield medicine. That is what Western medicine was designed for. That is what it is really good at and getting better. So, that is the place for it. And yet, and I'm grateful, and we're all grateful if we need the emergency room. However, the only thing that most doctors, especially around the gut, of all the specialties, the GI doctors know the least and probably do the most harm. They know the least. They have no toolbox. I tell all my clients, and I'm going to tell your audience, do not blame your doctor for why your gut doesn't work. They have no tools. They were not trained to heal any chronic inflammatory gut conditions. All they can do is wait for you to end up in the emergency room and do surgery, or give you a drug to deal with an infection. There's nothing in between. They have no toolbox for it. So don't bang your head against the wall. There are absolutely tools, super simple ways, step-by-step approaches to do this on my website. It's absolutely possible. This is a piece you can take into your own hands and you can help yourself with. And then what I love doctors for, because of course we love doctors, is I love them for the tests they can do. I love them for the information I get from them. I love when they tell my clients, you don't actually have cancer. And then my clients will say, but I feel horrible. And the doctor will say, no, you're fine. Okay, yes. Are they gaslighting my clients? Yes. But I'll say, that's actually the good news. Now we know we're not missing anything. And now we know you don't have anything your doctor can deal with. This is the good news. I've got this.
Yeah, really important. The training, and I think this is still the case for medical doctors regarding nutrition is, I mean, I think they spend a half a day on it or something.
Yeah, and that's generally pretty wrong too. It's also so, it's still the standard American diet. It still includes things like, things that used to be healthy, things that used to be healthy, like wheat. Our great grandparents ate wheat. The wheat and the corn and the soy in our country is sprayed with a chemical called glyphosates. Glyphosates actually bore tiny little holes into our gut, create a syndrome called leaky gut. I have a strainer over there because I'm about to do a video on leaky gut. I have a spaghetti strainer to show what our gut looks like after those chemicals. And that's because that's what those chemicals do to bugs. Well, guess where it doesn't stop? When it gets into our body. So American wheat, which was, the basis of our great grandparents' diet, is now a toxic thing to do. So going gluten-free is really important for everyone. Has nothing to do with a gluten allergy. Has to do with the chemicals in wheat, corn, and soy. And so it's kind of like just seeing things for what they are. It's not political, it's just seeing things for what they are, and then understanding how to protect ourselves and thrive in the midst of it all. We were dropped on a planet, it's like we were dropped on a new planet. Here we are. And this is how, because we are older and we're not raising babies, which would take up all of our time. We wouldn't even be able to have this conversation without a lot more noise than is going on right now. We actually have the time, the energy to deal with these things. And guess what? Everyone younger needs us to be awake, to pass on what we know.
Yeah, and read labels, folks.
Oh, please read labels. Get your microscope out because it's there. They make them smaller and smaller these days. And
You take your magnifying glass and read labels.
Yes, exactly. Read labels, honestly, read labels and buy things eat things as simply and wholly as possible. If you are living on your own, instead of a TV dinner, buy a rotisserie chicken. Buy sliced protein. If buy take get it canned salmon, eat scrambled eggs, make sweet potatoes. There's things you can do really fast, and there are things you can even get at the grocery store that are prepared that are better than a TV dinner. And TV dinners aren't cheap either.
Especially considering that you're not really getting any food that your body can use.
Yes,
Julia,
yes.
we're going to do another show soon
Okay.
on making those 7-minute meals. Oh, do
Yep.
I need to hear that and see that? And so when that comes up, folks, watch it. Don't just listen, watch it. Watch
Yep.
Julia prepare something because she really knows what she's talking about. And Julia, let's make sure that people know how to reach you and the wonderful guidance that you give
Mm.
on YouTube, on TikTok, correct?
Yeah, Instagram. And I now have a Facebook community page called the Happy Gut Tribe. And so, and social media, super fun. I actually, as you know, when I started TikTok, I thought it would be all 15-year-olds. There are so many people who come on my live feed who are our age. It's amazing. Um, so don't be shy, people. Have somebody young, put the TikTok app on your phone while we've still got it, or Instagram or whatever. And there I post videos there every day, also on YouTube every day. But you can also do a one-on-one consult with me if you would just like someone to help you figure out what is going on with you and walk you through how to feel better.
Yeah. So I hope everybody who is having these kinds of problems understands they're not alone.
No, you're not alone.
Amazing resource. She knows a great deal. Another time, we're going to talk about how she got into this business, something of that story. And she's a miracle.
Oh, thank you.
Miracle. And we're
Thank
all lucky she's here. And
thank you. I feel pretty darn lucky to be here too. I feel amazingly lucky to be here. I'll be 70, as you know, in a couple of weeks, and I feel I'm so incredibly grateful. And also, yes, something new in my body wakes me up with a new, like, oh, guess what? You're not 30. But you know my health history, and I did my aging at the front end.
well, and Julia takes some chances. I mean, she's still riding horses at her age and doing a lot of other things. She's got two very big dogs. So there are some challenges, some things that are a little bit daunting. And Julia's amazing. So,
Oh.
Julia, thank you, thank you,
Oh, thank
thank
you so
you.
much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being the voice and the person that you are.
Oh, Julia, bless you. And bless all of you. I hope this was helpful. I know it was for lots and lots of our viewers and our listeners. And Julia will be back teaching us how to cook for ourselves in the most delightful way. So we will see you next time, folks.
Okay, see you
Bye.
next time. Bye.
Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, is sponsored by Sensationally Silver, a complete hair care product line created especially for people with hair like ours, naturally gray and white hair. Sensationally Silver products can be found exclusively at sensationallysilver.com.
Sensationally silver.